And I don't think either of those two could have been able to cope. They'd been anywhere else. And that was the only good thing that happened, was that they were there.
At 5:12 on a freezing Scottish morning, a convoy of unmarked production trucks rolled silently through the private gates of Balmoral Castle, carrying lighting rigs, camera crates, catering supplies, and contract worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. And not one person inside those vehicles realized they were driving straight into what would become one of the most explosive royal scandals of the modern era. Because the man who sent them there had promised them something he never had the authority to give. And by the time Princess found out what was happening inside the castle, where Queen Elizabeth II spent her final hours, somebody was about to lose far more than money. What happened next would drag family loyalty, royal privilege, private greed, and decades of buried resentment into a legal war the monarchy may never fully recover from. And at the center of it all was Tom Parker Bowles. Before we go deeper, make sure to subscribe, because what Palace insiders claim happened over the next 72 hours left even veteran royal correspondents stunned. It began long before sunrise. Mist still hung over the hills surrounding Balmoral. Estate staff were only beginning their morning rounds. Kitchen fires were being lit. Security teams were changing shifts. And for most people working inside the King's private Scottish residence, it looked like any other quiet morning inside one of the most protected properties in Britain. Then the trucks arrived. First one, then two, then four. Production vehicles, catering vans, lighting equipment, portable generators. Dozens of crew members carrying sealed cases and clipboard schedules moved confidently through service entrances, as though they had been expected for weeks. And the truth was, they believed they had. According to individuals later connected to the internal review, every contractor on that property had been shown what appeared to be official authorization paperwork, palace access forms, estate movement approvals, property usage agreements, even scheduling memoranda carrying language designed to resemble internal royal communications. Everything looked legitimate. Everything looked official. Everything looked expensive. And every single page allegedly traced back to one person, Tom Parker Bowles. Sources familiar with the Financial Review claimed Tom had approached multiple production companies with what appeared to be an irresistible offer, a prestige documentary series filmed inside Britain's most exclusive aristocratic estates. Fine dining, historic kitchens, private recipes, royal heritage. But the location that made investors move instantly was Balmoral. The moment Tom allegedly promised private filming access to the King's personal estate, the money started moving, not slowly, not cautiously, immediately. Advance payments, consulting fees, location deposits, private licensing arrangements. By the time contracts were signed, reports suggest hundreds of thousands of pounds had already begun flowing through accounts linked to project. And according to insiders, none of it had ever been authorized by the Crown. But nobody at Balmoral knew that yet. Not the staff, not the contractors, not the production crew carefully unloading cameras inside stone corridors built generations before any of them were born. And certainly not the woman whose arrival would change everything. At exactly 8:34 that morning, according to administrative whispers later circulating through royal circles, a dark vehicle passed through the northern estate entrance without prior notice. No advance schedule, no media team, no ceremonial escort, just one car. And inside it, Princess Anne, those who know and often describe her as the one royal who never announces herself when something feels wrong. She doesn't create drama. She walks straight into it. Sources close to palace operations claim and had originally planned nothing more than a private estate review linked to long-term property oversight discussions involving King Charles III. But the moment she stepped through the main corridor of Balmoral, everything changed, because what she saw inside reportedly stopped her in her tracks. Lighting rigs, audio cables, portable monitors, crew members repositioning furniture, catering trays stacked against historic stone walls, and in the center, one of the most emotionally sacred rooms in the entire royal estate, a full commercial film set. For several seconds, insiders say Anne didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink, because this wasn't just another castle. This was a place where her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, had taken her final breath, These were the corridors she had walked during the darkest hours of September 2022. These were the rooms where grief had lived. And now strangers were adjusting camera angles as though it were a rented studio. Witnesses later claimed the temperature in the room seemed to drop the moment and finally spoke. And when she did, she didn't ask who approved the production. She asked, who sold them this house? That question reportedly froze every person in the room. Clipboards lowered, headsets came off, conversations stopped, and then one production coordinator, still believing everything had been properly arranged, allegedly gave a name nobody inside that room was prepared to hear, Tom Parker Bowles. And according to those who witnessed what happened next, Princess Anne's expression didn't change. But the entire future of that investigation did, because within the next 10 minutes, she would place a phone call that would leave even King Charles III in complete silence. And what royal lawyers uncovered after that call would reveal that this may not have been the first time Tom had quietly turned royal privilege into private profit. The call from Princess and to King Charles III reportedly lasted less than 2 minutes. Yet according to administrative whispers that later spread through royal legal circles, those 2 minutes may have marked the exact moment a deeply embarrassing family scandal transformed into a full institutional crisis capable of shaking the monarchy from its foundations. Standing inside a private stone corridor of Balmoral Castle, only a few steps away from camera rigs, catering stations, lighting towers, and production crews who still believe they had every right to be there, Princess and allegedly asked King Charles III only one direct and devastating question. Had King Charles III personally authorized commercial filming inside Balmoral Castle? The private Scottish residence where some of the most emotionally sacred moments in modern royal history had unfolded? According to multiple insiders familiar with the exchange, King Charles III did not hesitate, did not ask for clarification, and did not request time to verify schedules or administrative approvals. King Charles III reportedly answered immediately with a single word, no, and in that instant, Princess Anne understood that what was unfolding inside Balmoral Castle was not a scheduling error, not an embarrassing misunderstanding, and certainly not a routine breakdown of palace communication. What Princess Anne was now looking at appeared to be something far more dangerous, deliberate fraud operating under protection of royal proximity. When Princess Anne ended the call with King Charles III and stepped back into the historic interior of Balmoral Castle, witnesses later claimed the entire atmosphere inside the production hall changed before Princess Anne even spoke. Crew members who had been adjusting camera lenses, repositioning dining furniture, and discussing filming schedules reportedly noticed Princess and the Princess Royal walking toward the center of the room with a level of calm that felt almost more intimidating than open anger. According to state staff who later described the moment privately, Princess Anne did not raise her voice, did not make threats, and did not create public drama. Instead, Princess Anne looked directly at the executive producer, standing near the main lighting console, and calmly informed every person inside Balmoral Castle that all commercial activity inside royal property was ending immediately under direct authority of the crown. What followed was instant silence. Headsets came off, clipboards lowered, crew members stopped moving, conversations disappeared mid-sentence. For several seconds, no one inside Balmoral Castle seemed capable of processing what Princess Anne had just made unmistakably clear. What happened next reportedly stunned even experienced members of the Balmoral state staff, because rather than arguing, protesting, or attempting to negotiate additional time, several senior production managers confidently approached Princess and carrying folders filled with what appeared to be fully authenticated royal documentation. According to sources connected to the legal review, those folders contained estate permits, access approvals, filming licenses, scheduling memoranda, hospitality authorizations, and multiple pages bearing formatting that closely resembled genuine internal palace communication. Some documents even allegedly carried signatures designed to imitate senior administrative officials connected to Buckingham Palace. For a brief moment, several estate managers reportedly believed Princess Anne herself might be looking at paperwork that had somehow been approved without her knowledge. But Princess Anne, the daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and one of the most institutionally experienced members of the royal family, reportedly noticed inconsistencies almost immediately. Internal reference numbers did not align with known estate systems. Security authorization codes followed outdated formatting. Certain ceremonial language had been copied from archival templates no longer used by royal administration. And according to insiders, Princess understood within seconds that the paperwork had not simply been exaggerated. The paperwork had allegedly been manufactured. That realization reportedly triggered the next phase of Princess Anne's response. And according to royal legal sources, this was the exact moment Princess Anne stopped treating the situation as a family embarrassment involving Tom Parker Bowles and started treating the situation as a potential criminal operation exploiting the monarchy itself. From inside Balmoral Castle, Princess Anne allegedly contacted the royal legal team directly and instructed senior investigators to begin what one palace insider later described as a complete financial excavation. Every contract connected to Tom Parker Bowles, every payment linked to production companies, every licensing agreement, every consulting arrangement, every email, every access request, every bank transfer, nothing, according to insiders, was to be excluded. What made the situation even more explosive was how quickly investigators began discovering that Balmoral Castle was not the only royal property being quietly attached to Tom Parker Bowles' business promises. Within hours, according to administrative whispers now circulating among veteran royal correspondents, investigators allegedly uncovered proposal documents linking Tom Parker Bowles not only to Balmoral Castle, but also to Sandringham House, Windsor Castle, private culinary events, aristocratic filming packages, heritage tourism projects, and exclusive investor presentations built around access to locations that ordinary commercial operators could never legally touch. Every presentation reportedly carried the same unspoken promise that Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla, possessed private authority that opened doors no contract could normally access. And according to financial analysts later connected to the inquiry, significant sums of money had already begun moving through accounts tied directly or indirectly to those promises: consulting retainers, access deposits, investor advances, licensing fees, premium exclusivity payments. By the time early bank summaries reached Princess Anne, insiders claim even senior palace lawyers had stopped calling the situation embarrassing and started using a far darker word, systematic. Yet for Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, the money itself reportedly stopped being the most painful part of the investigation the moment one longtime estate employee quietly approached Princess, and with a detail no financial investigator could have anticipated. According to witnesses familiar with the private exchange, the specific room chosen by Tom Parker Bowles' production crew inside Balmoral Castle had not been selected for convenience, lighting, or historical beauty. The room allegedly chosen for commercial filming had been one of the final private spaces connected to the last days of Queen Elizabeth II. The same walls, the same corridors, the same rooms where Princess Anne stood during the final hours of Queen Elizabeth II's life. Witnesses later claimed that Princess Anne's expression changed immediately after hearing that detail. Not anger, not shock, something colder, something infinitely more personal. And according to those closest to the investigation, that was the exact moment Princess Anne decided Tom Parker Bowles was no longer facing a private royal reprimand, because what royal investigators were about to uncover inside Tom Parker Bowles' financial history suggested this may have been happening for far longer than anyone inside the monarchy had ever imagined. By the time Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, returned from the production floor of Balmoral Castle to the estate's private administrative wing, what started as an unauthorized filming scandal was already evolving into something far more dangerous, because the royal legal team working directly under Princess Anne had begun receiving the first wave of financial records connected to Tom Parker Bowles. And according to insiders familiar with that review, the documents arriving on Princess Anne's desk were not pointing toward a single reckless mistake made by Queen Camilla's son, but toward a carefully built commercial operation that may have been quietly monetizing royal proximity for years without triggering serious internal resistance. Senior investigators reportedly started with the most recent contracts tied to Balmoral Castle, expecting to find one suspicious payment, one questionable invoice, or one isolated misuse of influence. Yet the moment banking records, consulting agreements, and licensing proposals were laid side by side, the pattern emerging in front of Princess and reportedly became impossible to ignore because Tom Parker Bowles appeared again and again and again attached to private hospitality projects, elite culinary partnerships, aristocratic documentary proposals, exclusive investor dinners, and premium branding arrangements whose market value made little sense unless the buyers believed they were purchasing something far more valuable than Tom Parker Bowles' personal reputation. According to administrative whispers that later reached veteran royal correspondents, the first major breakthrough came when investigators traced a series of unusually large consulting transfers into accounts linked to Tom Parker Bowles during the previous 18 months. And what immediately caught the attention of Princess and the daughter of Queen Elizabeth II was not simply the amount of money moving through those accounts, but the language used in the accompanying agreements. Multiple contracts reportedly referenced phrases such as private royal access, heritage-level exclusivity, estate-connected filming opportunities, and institutional hospitality privileges, wording that appeared carefully designed to create the unmistakable impression that Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla, possessed access to spaces, events, and royal relationships that ordinary commercial clients could never obtain through legitimate channels. Even more troubling for Princess was the fact that several agreements allegedly referenced not just Balmoral Castle, but also Sandringham House, Windsor Castle, and private culinary gatherings connected to senior members of the royal household, a discovery that transformed what looked like opportunistic misconduct into a pattern that could potentially expose multiple royal properties to reputational damage. As Princess and continued reviewing the financial evidence, the investigation reportedly took another deeply unsettling turn when one senior forensic accountant quietly informed Princess and that the money trail surrounding Tom Parker Bowles was only part of the story, because alongside commercial payments, investigators had also identified repeated use of communication materials that appeared to carry unofficial royal credibility. According to sources close to the internal review, Tom Parker Bowles had allegedly been sending personal business correspondence using stationery, formatting, and contact channels that created the visual impression of institutional approval from Buckingham Palace. And in some cases, Tom Parker Bowles reportedly attached photographs of Queen Camilla, photographs of state receptions, and photographs taken near King Charles III in ways that encouraged investors, publishers, restaurant groups, and private sponsors to believe that Tom Parker Bowles was operating with quiet support from the crown itself. Princess and the Princess Royal reportedly understood immediately why this detail mattered so much, because financial exaggeration could sometimes be dismissed as personal ambition, but the deliberate creation of perceived royal endorsement crossed into territory that could expose the monarchy itself to accusations of institutional exploitation. What transformed Princess and concern into something far more personal, however, was not the paperwork, not the contracts, and not even the bank transfers, but the moment the royal legal team began quietly reopening older reports connected to Tom Parker Bowles' public controversies. According to administrative whispers emerging from senior palace circles, investigators were instructed to go backward, not forward, and that decision reportedly uncovered archive concerns stretching back decades. Files connected to media scandals, private behavioral warnings, business complaints, and questions about inappropriate use of social access allegedly began resurfacing one after another. And while none of those incidents had ever fully exploded into constitutional crisis, the cumulative effect reportedly left Princess, and with a devastating realization. Tom Parker Bowles may not have suddenly discovered how to profit from royal proximity in the present day, because Tom Parker Bowles may have been refining that strategy for most of adult life, while the institution quietly chose silence over confrontation. By late evening, the internal review reportedly expanded beyond Princess Anne's immediate legal circle and began drawing attention from another figure whose influence inside the future of the monarchy carried enormous weight: Prince William, the future king, whose relationship with questions of institutional accountability had reportedly become increasingly uncompromising in recent years. According to insiders familiar with private communication between royal households, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, was quietly informed that the investigation involving Tom Parker Bowles was no longer centered around one unauthorized filming operation at Balmoral Castle, but around possible long-term exploitation of royal access. And sources claim Prince William's reaction was not surprise, not disbelief, and certainly not hesitation. Instead, Prince William allegedly asked one direct question of Princess and's legal advisors. How long had Tom Parker Bowles been operating without challenge? That question reportedly carried enormous weight inside palace circles, because Prince William, the future king, was already known for privately insisting that proximity to the crown should never function as protection from accountability. Yet the most explosive moment of the night reportedly arrived when investigators uncovered one final piece of evidence that nobody inside the royal household had expected to find. Hidden among licensing agreements, investor proposals, and premium hospitality contracts was a draft presentation allegedly prepared by Tom Parker Bowles for high-net-worth commercial backers. And according to insiders who later heard fragments of its contents, that presentation did not merely imply access to royal property. It allegedly referenced private family relationships, internal scheduling knowledge, and future opportunities connected to Queen Camilla, King Charles III, and potentially even appearances at gatherings involving Prince William. The moment Princess and saw that material, insiders claimed Princess and stopped asking how much money Tom Parker Bowles had made, because Princess had begun asking a far darker question. Who else inside the royal orbit may have known this was happening all along? By the time the clock inside Buckingham Palace moved past midnight, Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, was no longer looking at a commercial scandal involving Tom Parker Bowles and Princess, and was no longer asking royal lawyers how much money Tom Parker Bowles had collected, how many investors Tom Parker Bowles had persuaded, or how many forged authorizations had already been circulated through private business circles. According to administrative whispers emerging from senior palace figures, Princess had entered a far more dangerous phase of the investigation, because the question keeping Princess in the wake was no longer what Tom Parker Bowles had done, but who inside the royal orbit may have quietly allowed Tom Parker Bowles to build an empire around access, proximity, and implied royal influence without ever forcing Tom Parker Bowles to face meaningful consequences. Sources familiar with Princess Anne's private meetings claim that sometime after midnight, Princess Anne quietly ordered investigators to stop focusing exclusively on contracts and financial transfers and instead begin reconstructing every internal relationship, every private introduction, every invitation, and every institutional connection that had allowed Tom Parker Bowles to move so confidently between elite investors, aristocratic venues, media executives, and commercial sponsors who seemed remarkably willing to trust promises that should never have existed in the first place. What investigators allegedly uncovered during those first relationship reviews reportedly sent a wave of discomfort through senior members of the royal household, because the pattern surrounding Tom Parker Bowles did not look like isolated opportunism, and the pattern surrounding Queen Camilla's son did not look like one charismatic public figure exaggerating personal importance for financial gain. According to insiders familiar with those records, Tom Parker Bowles had spent years positioning business opportunities around moments of genuine royal visibility, attaching private ventures to state receptions, attaching sponsorship proposals to high-profile charity events, attaching hospitality packages to gatherings attended by King Charles III, and quietly reinforcing the impression that investors were not simply buying access to Tom Parker Bowles, but buying proximity to the inner machinery of the crown itself. What made those findings even more alarming for Princess Anne, the daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, was the consistency with which Tom Parker Bowles appeared to time commercial activity around public royal milestones, coronation coverage, estate anniversaries, seasonal gatherings at Sandringham House, private social appearances connected to Queen Camilla. Every opportunity, according to investigators, appeared carefully selected to maximize perceived legitimacy while minimizing internal scrutiny. As Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, continued reviewing those patterns, another name reportedly began appearing more frequently in private conversations inside royal legal circles: Prince William, the future king, whose private standards surrounding institutional accountability had reportedly become increasingly uncompromising since the final years of Queen Elizabeth II. According to sources connected to both Kensington and Buckingham operations, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, had already been quietly monitoring the investigation involving Tom Parker Bowles. But the moment Princess Anne's legal team uncovered evidence suggesting that private investor presentations may have referenced future access to senior royals, Prince William's interest reportedly changed from quiet concern to direct involvement. Administrative whispers claim that Prince William requested a private summary of all materials connecting Tom Parker Bowles to any business proposal that referenced members of the direct line of succession, and when that summary allegedly reached Prince William, the future king reportedly focused on one specific category of evidence: documents that suggested commercial backers had been promised opportunities linked not only to Queen Camilla and King Charles III, but potentially to events involving Prince William, the Prince of Wales, and even Catherine, Princess of Wales, known to millions around the world as Kate Middleton. That development reportedly changed the emotional temperature of the investigation overnight, because the moment Prince William, the future king, realized that Tom Parker Bowles may have been using the names of Catherine, Princess of Wales, and members of the next generation of the monarchy to increase commercial leverage, insiders claim Prince William stopped viewing the investigation as a family embarrassment involving Queen Camilla's son and started viewing the investigation as a direct, institutional threat to the future credibility of the crown. According to palace figures familiar with those private reactions, Prince William allegedly made it unmistakably clear that any evidence connecting Tom Parker Bowles to unauthorized references involving Catherine, Princess of Wales, or future royal appearances would not be quietly buried for the sake of family harmony. That position reportedly carried enormous symbolic weight inside Buckingham Palace, because Prince William, the Prince of Wales, represented not just another senior royal voice, but the future authority of the monarchy itself. Yet while Princess and Prince William were quietly moving toward deeper accountability, another emotional storm was reportedly beginning to form behind closed doors involving Queen Camilla. According to administrative whispers now circulating among veteran royal correspondents, Queen Camilla was privately briefed on the scale of the investigation surrounding Tom Parker Bowles sometime during the early hours of the morning, and insiders claim Queen Camilla's initial reaction was not disbelief that Tom Parker Bowles could have exploited royal access, and Queen Camilla's initial reaction was not confusion over forged authorizations or investor presentations. Instead, according to sources familiar with the private conversations, Queen Camilla's first concern reportedly centered on one question: how far Princess intended to take the investigation before the scandal became impossible to contain publicly. That question alone reportedly revealed to several senior advisors that Queen Camilla understood immediately how dangerous Princess Anne's investigation had become, because once Prince William, the future king, had shown interest, the traditional royal instinct to quietly suppress embarrassment was becoming harder to maintain. By dawn, however, the investigation reportedly uncovered something even more explosive than forged paperwork, investor contracts, or unauthorized filming at Balmoral Castle. Because hidden among Tom Parker Bowles' archive correspondence was a chain of private communications allegedly linking Tom Parker Bowles to a small circle of elite advisors, luxury sponsors, and media intermediaries who appear to have known for some time that Tom Parker Bowles' promises extended far beyond food writing, documentaries, or hospitality projects. According to insiders familiar with those communications, some messages allegedly suggested that certain people surrounding Tom Parker Bowles had begun treating royal proximity not as family privilege, not as symbolic influence, but as a monetizable asset whose commercial value could grow as long as nobody inside the monarchy decided to stop it. And when Princess and the Princess Royal read those communications for the first time, sources claimed Princess and stopped asking whether Tom Parker Bowles had exploited the institution, because Princess had begun asking whether Tom Parker Bowles had ever been operating alone at all. By the time the first light of morning began touching the stone towers of Buckingham Palace and the private grounds of Balmoral Castle, Princess and the Princess Royal was no longer dealing with a family embarrassment involving Tom Parker Bowles, and Princess and was no longer managing an uncomfortable internal dispute that could be quietly solved with private warnings, confidential meetings, or carefully worded palace statements. According to administrative whispers emerging from senior royal circles, Princess and had reached a far more painful conclusion during those final hours of the investigation, because every financial record, every investor presentation, every private communication, and every unauthorized access proposal now appeared to point to a reality that nobody inside the monarchy wanted to acknowledge publicly. Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla, may not have built a commercial operation around royal access by accident, by impulse, or by temporary poor judgment. Tom Parker Bowles, according to investigators close to the inquiry, may have spent years building a system designed to transform royal proximity into private influence into investor confidence, and investor confidence into substantial financial gain, while the institution itself remained too cautious, too divided, or too politically sensitive to confront what was happening in plain sight. What transformed Princess Anne's investigation from a private legal review into something that could permanently reshape the internal culture of the monarchy was the moment senior forensic analysts allegedly completed a full communication reconstruction tied to Tom Parker Bowles' business activity over multiple years. According to sources familiar with those findings, Tom Parker Bowles had not simply been presenting luxury sponsors with vague promises of prestige or social access. Instead, Tom Parker Bowles allegedly built highly targeted presentations that referenced state functions attended by King Charles III, estate gatherings connected to Queen Camilla, and private hospitality opportunities designed to create the unmistakable impression that investors were purchasing access to living royal influence rather than ordinary media partnerships. Even more disturbing for Princess and the Princess Royal was the discovery that several communications allegedly referenced possible future events involving Prince William, the future king, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, known globally as Kate Middleton, a discovery that reportedly transformed Prince William's quiet concern into direct institutional pressure for accountability. According to insiders connected to both Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, reportedly received a confidential legal summary detailing every instance where Tom Parker Bowles' commercial materials appeared to reference members of the direct line of succession, and sources claim Prince William's response left absolutely no room for interpretation. Prince William, the future king, allegedly made it clear that any business activity involving unauthorized references to Catherine, Princess of Wales, to Prince George, or to the next generation of the monarchy will be viewed not as a family issue, not as a media problem, and certainly not as a misunderstanding involving Queen Camilla's son, but as a direct institutional threat to the credibility of the future crown. That position reportedly shifted the balance of power inside the palace overnight, because for the first time since the investigation began, Princess Anne was no longer standing alone as the monarchy's uncompromising enforcer. Princess Anne now reportedly had the quiet support of Prince William, the future king, a development that senior courtiers allegedly described as politically decisive. Yet even as Princess Anne and Prince William quietly moved toward accountability, the most emotionally charged confrontation of the entire crisis was reportedly unfolding behind closed doors between Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, and Queen Camilla, the Queen Consort, whose son now stood at the center of one of the most explosive internal investigations of King Charles III's reign. According to multiple administrative whispers now circulating among veteran royal correspondents, Queen Camilla reportedly pushed for discretion, restraint, and private resolution, warning that public legal action involving Tom Parker Bowles could create headlines powerful enough to overshadow the stability of King Charles III's reign during one of the most sensitive chapters of the monarchy's modern transition. Princess Anne, however, reportedly viewed the situation through a far colder institutional lens, because Princess Anne spent a lifetime serving beside Queen Elizabeth II and understood something few people inside the royal orbit understood as deeply. Institutions do not collapse only when enemies attack from outside. Institutions begin collapsing when silence protects damage from within. Sources close to those private discussions claim Princess and allegedly reminded senior advisors that Balmoral Castle was not simply another royal residence, not simply another property on a financial ledger, and certainly not another filming location that could be casually monetized for investor confidence. Balmoral Castle was the final home of Queen Elizabeth II, the place where Princess Anne stood during the last hours of Queen Elizabeth II's life, the place where the late monarch's final memories became part of royal history. And according to insiders, that emotional reality made Princess Anne's position almost impossible to soften. Tom Parker Bowles had not merely crossed a professional line, and Tom Parker Bowles had not merely embarrassed the institution. In Princess Anne's eyes, Tom Parker Bowles had allegedly commercialized sacred memory, leveraged inherited proximity, and risked exposing the monarchy's most protected spaces to people whose loyalty began and ended with profit. By the final stage of the investigation, however, the deepest wound inside the monarchy reportedly had nothing to do with contracts, forged approvals, investor deposits, or even unauthorized filming equipment inside Balmoral Castle. According to senior insiders, the most painful realization came when Princess and Prince William, King Charles III, and a small circle of trusted advisors began accepting a truth that may permanently change how royal access is controlled in the years ahead. The monarchy's greatest vulnerability was not the press, not political opposition, not critics, and not even public scandal. The monarchy's greatest vulnerability had quietly become the people close enough to borrow its credibility without earning its responsibility. And according to those closest to Princess Anne's investigation, that realization has already triggered discussions involving rewritten access structures, tighter family oversight, stricter estate authorization systems, and a far colder approach toward anyone attempting to profit from symbolic royal proximity. So while the gates of Buckingham Palace still open, while the cameras still capture ceremonial smiles, while King Charles III continues carrying the visible weighted crown, and while Prince William, the future king, quietly prepares for the responsibilities of the next era, one question still lingers behind the walls of Britain's oldest institution. If Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla, was able to move this deeply, this confidently, and this profitably through the orbit of the monarchy for this long, how many other shadows have never been exposed? If you found this investigation as shocking as the palace insiders who lived through it, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next royal revelation may already be unfolding behind the gates of Buckingham Palace. And when it does, you'll want to be here first.